Hello everybody, it's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to Book Reviews. So, today, we're going to finish off the Southern Reach trilogy. I've moved outside. You can see that it's beautiful in southern Wisconsin in the middle of January. It's actually a nice, temperate day for the middle of January. And so I decided, hey, why not outside? So, and it's appropriate for the description of this novel. So, let's just get into the description. This is obviously the third book of the Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff VanderMeer, so there will be spoilers for the first two books, which you should read because they're awesome. It is winter in Area X, the mysterious wilderness that has defied explanation for 30 years, rebuffing expedition after expedition, refusing to reveal its secrets. As Area X expands, the agency tasked with investigating and overseeing it, the Southern Reach, has collapsed in on itself in confusion. Now one last desperate team crosses the border, determined to reach a remote island that may hold the answers they've been seeking. If they fail, the outer world is in peril. Meanwhile, acceptance tunnels ever deeper into the circumstances surrounding the creation of Area X. What initiated this unnatural upheaval? Among the many who have tried, who has gotten close to understanding Area X and who may have been corrupted by it? In this last installment of Jeff VanderMeer's Southern Reach trilogy, the mysteries of Area X may be solved, but their consequences and implications are no less profound or terrifying. Now, one of the things to say about this book is that VanderMeer is very comfortable with leaving you with unanswered questions, so if you're not okay with that, this might not be the book series for you. But if you're already 2 books into it, well, sorry. Maybe I should have said this to you earlier. I probably did. I don't really remember. We're on take 5 of this review, by the way. All 4 previous takes were interrupted by dog. So, yeah, acceptance. Now, one of the wonderful things about acceptance is that, you know what, actually, maybe we should just dive in and read a little bit of it. So, what you need to know is that the first book sets up, Annihilation sets you up with this Area X and kind of the organization that oversees it. And then the second book is kind of this placeholder in the trilogy that leads you up to kind of what you expect to be this big kind of adventure and exploration of Area X. But that's actually about 20% of this novel. This novel actually travels back and tells the story, tells you a lot about Area X from the point of view of the people who lived in Area X before and as it became Area X. So you get to see the process kind of unfold in this very Lovecraftian way, and that's one of the passages I'm going to read to you, so you kind of know what's going on. So, yeah. Then they mostly just listened. By the way, this is about the lighthouse keeper in Area X. This is about him going out to dinner, I believe, with his lover. So, then they mostly just listened, stealing moments between songs to try or grab another beer. In scanning the room for people he knew, people he might give a nod to, claim a bond with, he felt for a while now not like the one watching, but the one being watched. He put it down to some receding symptoms of his non-condition, or to Charlie's skittishness rubbing off on him. But then, through the murky welter of bodies, the rising tide of loud conversations, the frenetic playing of the band, he spied an unwelcome figure across the room near the door. Henry. He stood perfectly still watching, without even a drink in his hand. Henry wore that ridiculous silk shirt and pretentious slacks, pressed just so, and yet curiously he blended in against the wall, as if he belonged there. No one but Saul seemed to notice him. That Suzanne wasn't with him struck Saul hard for some reason. It made him resist the urge to turn to Charlie and point Henry out to him. That's the man who broke into my lighthouse a few nights ago. The whole time Saul stared at Henry, the edges of the room had been growing darker and darker, and the sickly sweet smell intensified, and everyone around Henry grew more and more insubstantial, vague, unknowable silhouettes. And all the light came to Henry and gathered around him and spilled back out from him. A kind of vertigo washed over Saul, as if a vast pit had opened up beneath him, and he was suspended above it, about to fall. Then there came back all of the old symptoms he thought were gone, as if they'd just been hiding. There was a comet dripping fire through his head, trailing flame down his back. While the band kept playing through the darkness, their sound curdling into a song, sung far too low, and before they could vanish into a darkly glinting spiral, before everything not Henry could disappear, Saul gripped the table with both hands and looked away. The chatter, the rush, and realignment of conversations came back, and the light came back, and the band sounded normal again, and Charlie was talking to him like nothing had happened. Saul's sense of relief so palpable, the blood within him was rushing too hard, and he felt faint. When after a stabilizing minute he dared sneak a glance towards where Henry had stood, the man had vanished, and someone else stood in his place. Someone Saul didn't know, who raised his beard to Saul awkwardly, so that he realized he'd been staring across the room for too long. Yeah, so the book kind of goes there. And it's very Annihilation-like, but in the real world, which it becomes very, VanderMeer has this, first off, people's kind of descent into madness because they're in a reality that is rapidly changing, and they perceive it in a way that is kind of tip of the tongue or deja vu like. It's beautiful, the way VanderMeer lays that out. That you get to follow these people, and like I said, things are changing in ways that are more suspected and felt than experienced, and a lot of it seems to be minds rebelling against kind of this thing that is happening. And Saul is an interesting character. Saul is a character who features very heavily in all three novels in a way that's very strange, and then features in this novel as the main character, essentially. Him and a character named Gloria, who also features in the first two novels in different ways, and then come into their own in this book. So, VanderMeer is magnificent. I mean, I just have to say that the trilogy in general pays off in amazing ways. And are all the questions about Area X answered? No. A lot more questions are raised than are answered. Are important questions answered? Yeah. Some super important questions are answered. I really love the book. I love the kind of loose feel of what's going on, and like I said, I know I've talked before about the similarities to Roadside Picnic, which is not a bad thing. Roadside Picnic is a masterpiece, but VanderMeer goes so much further with the kind of experienced weirdness, unexplained strangeness of a reality like this. And it's a thing that you kind of have to be open to have kind of more questions. There are questions you're going to come out with that are not remotely even important. But there are questions that are ridiculously important. What happens to people in Area X? The people who don't come out, what happens to them? And is it answered? Yeah, kind of, but how and why? And they're also, and I have a great kind of alternate theory for a reading of this book that I really can't, I don't think it's appropriate to discuss in a review, but if you've read this book, and I want to say, I think you should, if you've read this book, I think you should reconsider who the owl is. That's what I'll say about it. Because I really think you've got it, you probably got it wrong. At least according to my theory. Now, that being said, who the owl is. But here's the deal. Is this book is fantastic, right? It's just fantastic. And it's a treat all the way. The pacing is slow, but the pacing is deliberately slow. And there's something wonderful about that. You do not regret that the pacing is slow throughout the course of this novel. You don't want this to be a faster book. It needs to be this slow burn kind of where it's going. And as far as the main characters that the second book gave you, I actually didn't really care by the time I got to the third book. Once it went back in time and started telling the stories of like this little girl and this lighthouse keeper and stuff who go through kind of who are in Area X. One of them who leaves, and then one of them who stays. I was amazed. I was just amazed. That's all I wanted to read about. And VanderMeer delivers. Like, here's the thing, is that, like, don't underestimate how good these books are. They're amazing. They're amazing in a very fresh sort of way, too, which is really nice. It's not like reading, and no offense to the people who have been writing Hugo Award winners that I've been reading, like recent Hugo Award winners. But VanderMeer's stuff is very fresh compared to that kind of stuff. And it's not that A Memory Called Empire is an inherently bad book, but it's also not a thing where I was just like, oh, that's startlingly, that's unlike something else I've read. Whereas VanderMeer's Southern Reach trilogy is just a breath of fresh air. Like, it's a breath of cold winter air. It's not actually that cold up here. Like, it's just, it's so refreshing, and it's so strange. It was a lot like reading N.K. Jemison's Broken Earth, like, trilogy, where I was just like, this just feels like something absolutely new. And there's something really cool about that, right? When you get your hands on something and you read it, and it's enjoyable and it's wonderful, but then it's all so fresh. Like, oh, that's so great. Because I love good science fiction, but what I love more is kind of new ideas, right? Like, I want every novel I read to feel like a new thing. Like, and VanderMeer did that really well. And Annihilation is amazing. It is easily the strongest book in the trilogy because it's so good. It's so mind-blowingly good. But this just barely falls below being like the best book in the trilogy. Like, you think after reading the second book, you almost might be willing to go like, man, he can't really finish that strong. Oh yes, he can. Oh yes, he can. And the two books are amazing for completely different reasons. Which, oh man, my hat's off to a guy who can do that. A guy who within a trilogy can just be like, here are three very different books. Like, let me see what you think. And two of them are unbelievable. Like, unbelievably good. Just delightful reads that are exciting and, like, really great to, oh man. And the surprises in here are fantastic. They're so fantastic. Like, there's a big turning point in the middle of both novels, Annihilation and Acceptance. These big surprise turning points. There's one in Authority as well, but it's not quite as great. And the twist in this is way better than the twist in Annihilation. The twist in Annihilation is still pretty cruel. The thing about Annihilation though is the twist in Annihilation is terrifying. Like, absolutely, I might not sleep tonight terrifying. And the twist in this one is just so kind of knock you off your chair startling that you just go, oh, that's a thing. Yeah, completely check these out. Like, seriously, just check this trilogy out. Just watch the trilogy, or read the trilogy. So when we come back, I have plans, and I'll see you for my plans. Bye, everybody.